Our Grok Talk, coming to you almost every Saturday morning, 9 to 11 Eastern Standard Time. Oh, hang on. Better? Okay. You can listen to us, not just this program, but all our past, previous programs, on wonderful resources like iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. We are, of course, on GraniteRock.com, YouTube, Ustream. No excuse. Yes, I'm wasting time while Skip gets our guest on the phone. He's still getting the guest on the phone. Coming up later, Jazz Shaw, David Bozell, and Max Abramson will be joining us momentarily to talk about a special election. I'm just not sure what the deal is here. Huh? Oh, his smartphone. Okay, that's fine. Not a problem. We like landlines.
First version of Microsoft Word from Bill Gates. They thought it knew better than it did.
All right, we're still killing time. All right, so Max will be in to talk about Rio Tilton running against Elaine Andrews Ahern in a Seacoast special election coming up. We'll get all those details. David Bozell will be here to talk about the need to nominate a conservative for president. Jazz Shaw is going to join us from Hot Air to talk about everything political. And we would like to welcome Jorge Mesa-Tejada to the program. Jorge, good morning. You there? Jorge?
Hey, Jorge, you got to turn off your computer system volume.
Jeez, you know, we had this down.
Okay.
Hey! Jorge! Good morning.
Sorry about the technology glitch.
Oh, that's okay. It's a new experience for us to have it be on your end, because usually it's us. So that's fine. So good morning.
No, good morning. I have a smartphone that's smarter than me, so that's the problem.
It's a smart-ass phone. That's the problem.
There you go.
Okay, so...
Okay, let's make up for the lost time.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, the subject that I had to talk to you about is how it is the high cost of labor in school districts is not the union contracts, but it is the irresponsible school boards. And here is my thesis. Let me give you some background first. Contrary to the school board claims, teacher contracts are not for the children. Keith Tiger, the former president of the Michigan NEA, the most rabid local in the nation, said a few years ago, "I'll represent children when they pay dues." Now, let's go to what is a union contract. It's simply a menu, a list of salary and salary-related benefits that apply to all the members of the local. But those cost items only become effective and mandatory when the school board applies them to individual employees. So why are school budgets so high? Well, two reasons. The school board negotiated and approved the inflated contracts, and the board blindly applied the benefits to all existing union members without quantifying the cost impact. Then the board claims it is powerless to control this runaway train. That is the crux of the problem, guys. It is okay, not advisable, to agree to exorbitant union contract terms. But it is not okay to use the contract as an excuse to tax constituents to oblivion. Let me give you an example. It is the same thing as going to McDonald's and ordering everything in the menu and then complaining about the high bill and blaming it on the menu. Shouldn't you first check how much money you do spend before ordering? So the same thing is true of a school district. The contracts and numbers of teachers is controlled by the board. The contracts do not control the board. Thus, I maintain that it is the responsible school boards that are totally responsible for the high cost of labor because they refuse to adjust the number of employees to a reasonable amount to offset the generous salary demanded by the contract, which the board negotiated in the first place. That's my thesis, guys.
So interestingly, we've been doing this for, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 months now, and it occurs to me that there is a very consistent theme here, and that is that school boards are basically responsible for a lot of the things that we've talked about, the wild, running, loose, free-range superintendents, the contracts, and how do we how do we educate the people, because they're going to elect school board members, and those are the people who are going to allow these things to happen. And we really need to do something about this.
Precisely. The problem is that when people run for a school board, they do it with best of intentions. Some because the union puts them up to them because they have an agenda or something. But in general, they are well-intentioned people. Then they hit the reality when they have the first meeting and the superintendent tells them, you follow my direction. And then the New Hampshire School Boards Association reinforces that. So the board becomes a rubber stamp rather than the board of directors, which is mandated by law. And they fail to discharge their lawful duties. How do you change that? That takes a certain amount of gumption and integrity on the part of those who run for boards.
Well, not only that, Jorge, and thanks for coming on, but it also seems to be, at least in my experience, that while the elections here in New Hampshire are nonpartisan, what I've seen in my town is that often it is the government workers and their supporters against everybody else. And unfortunately, everybody else doesn't always show up depending on the town because, say in my town, they can afford the higher taxes. And I know that out of the municipal and school board costs in the town, the school boards or the school district is 2/3 of the entire bite out of the wallet. And yet, having run a couple of times now and seeing as soon as I start running, the government employees band together and decide to make sure I don't get back in. And we've been able to prove that by going through the ballots and going through the voter lists and the results. It's very hard to get the normal people to come out and vote their own self-interest, whereas the schoolies or the town employees are definitely going to get them and their supporters out to vote their interests.
Well, that is true everywhere, but what they vote is whatever the board puts out there on that ballot. So that does not obviate my statement that the whatever is put on paper and it is being put forth for the voters to approve still is the product of the board.
Right,
which
but
it isn't. It's really the superintendent.
Well, yeah, but I'm just kind of pointing out that the boards get stacked.
Oh, definitely, no question about that. We cannot cure all the ills, but the question is how come they don't see that while enrollment is going down, labor costs keep going up, and we don't see any reduction in personnel? Well, what can you say? I mean, the data does not lie. And when you confront these people, they just look up in the air, and then the assistant superintendent or superintendent comes to the rescue and say, they give you all the platitudes that you are used to hearing. But the bottom line is that the board does not exercise its lawful duty and say, okay, this is why we are doing it.
How many classes do you need to run? How many kids are in each class? And what auxiliary activities or indeed auxiliary staff do you have that maybe you don't need to prepare and deliver lessons, which is, after all, the only function of the school?
I was going to say the administrative costs, the number of administrative personnel, also something that superintendents tend to swell if they have the opportunity, has an additional burden, in many cases a significant burden on school budgets, doesn't it?
Yeah, friends and relatives.
And usually they are not part of a union, but their salaries are based on the union scale. And it's a circular firing squad. The superintendent is part of the negotiating team, and so is the assistant superintendent sometimes. So they negotiate a contract. And then when the SAU salary situation comes up or the principal salaries come up for discussion, they say, well, we have to do it so much higher than my highest paid teacher based on the union contract. So they negotiate the schedules, and they use that as a basis to argue for their salaries.
Yeah, and it is hard because what you hear, and I'll never forget this at one of the town meetings, or town deliberative sessions actually, was I overheard two teachers. One of them turned out to be the head of the local school union. Well, the enrollment may be down, but the needs are greater in trying to talk about the school budget. So until a number of people start asking the question, what's your direct versus indirect labor cost ratio, they're not going to cut it until you catch them red-handed. Unfortunately, for a lot of school boards, they are starting to face the declining enrollment, and they have to start cutting because the normal person is starting to get the idea of exactly your question. Why do the costs keep going up even as the enrollments are going down 10, 15, 20, 25%? People are starting to say, wait a minute here.
Hey, Jorge, we just ran out of segment.
Oh.
Okay, nice talking to you guys. Have a good weekend.
Thanks. You too. We'll talk to you next month.
Okay, take care.
All right. Have a good day. Bye. Okay. Oops, I cut off his goodbye. This is Grok Talk. I'm Steve McDonald here with Mike Rogers. Marma Rogers is here supervising Skip Murphy, and we will be right back. Stay tuned. We're expecting Max Abramson any minute.